Hello, and welcome to the Success Showcase. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin from the Modern Observer Group, and with me, as always, is Chip Janiszewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. Chip, how you doing this week?
Doing great, Eric. How about you?
Doing fantastic.
Yard is full of color. Leaves are falling down. It's fall in its finest, except that it's raining today.
Yes, we're definitely heading into fall, and for that reason, we're also heading into our third season of the Success Showcase. So we're looking forward to another season of bringing good information to our listeners.
We'll have to close with happy birthday music today.
Yeah. Well, today we're going to be talking about setting goals. And I think the best reason for setting goals comes from a quote from Yogi Berra, that great philosopher, who said, if you don't know where you're going, you might not get there.
Wow, that's deep.
Yeah, he was absolutely right.
Absolutely.
You need to figure out where you're going before you can figure out how you're going to get there. So setting goals becomes very important. And getting specific about, what a goal is. There are lots of people who've covered this. I think one of my favorite definitions is a goal is a dream with a deadline. I've also heard, it's not a goal until you write it down and let people know. And all of these things are important because, yes, you need to have a deadline for it to be a goal. Somebody needs to know about it, or at least you have to have it written down so there's some accountability to it. Otherwise, it's just, something you'd like to do at some point.
Yeah, the definition of a dream does not become a goal until it becomes time-bound is really, really important, because the bottom line is we all tend to dream a whole lot, but as soon as we put it on paper with a time-bound goal deadline, that's what gets things going. And we talk a lot about what our big long-term goals are. It could be weight loss, it could be financial success, and so on and so forth. But we also talk a lot about drilling it down into its smallest parts, and each one of those are the little mini goals that you have to accomplish to get to the big one, instead of trying to conquer the world in one foul swoop. So getting it organized on paper with what your major goal is really, really important. And there's, a lot of places that you have to start. Some people talk about money. Some people will be talking about their business, but we've talked about personal strategic planning a lot, and you need goals for every facet of your life. And it's going to help you become a much more positive person. So consider things like places you'd like to visit. Obviously, if you're looking to lose weight or some physical goals, that's great. Maybe skills that you want to learn, things that you want to read, that kind of thing. But take a look at every facet of your life, and a good way to start is just write down columns for all those different things that you want to analyze, and then just start writing things down below that and kind of sort things out and figure out what are the things that you want to do the most now. And then what you can do is put them on a spreadsheet and start saying, these are my next 30-day goals, this is for a year, and sort them out by the next few years to come. But the bottom line is, if you have it in writing, number one, you're going to get organized, and they're a whole lot more likely to happen. And number two, you won't have to start scratching your head tomorrow saying, what did I think about today that I was going to get done? Or what did I think about yesterday that I was going to get done?
Yeah, that's always a great reason for writing things down. People's memories are never as good as we think they are. So you want to have everything put down. And you mentioned breaking these goals down into the smallest possible steps. Now, in the Biznetics system that we teach, we call those sprint goals. And those are the small goals that you can run to. And each one gets you a little closer to your bigger goal. So it's important not just to have the overarching goals, but to have those smaller sprint goals to get you there. You also have to keep yourself open, because sometimes a goal will actually create other goals. And a friend of mine, she decided her goal was she wanted to visit Paris. Great goal. Well, as she was making the plans for all of this, she realized she's going to get a lot more out of the trip if she knows French. So she created another goal from that she wants to learn French and then go to Paris. So you never know where your goals are going to lead you.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point as far as one playing off the other. That sheet that I read off the different options from a little bit before is called the 101 Goals Generator. A lot of times, as an exercise, when you're doing something, somebody's going to ask you to write down 100 goals, and you're going to say, how in the world am I going to come up with 100 things? And this is where if you start writing things down, and with yours, we talked about places to visit as one of the columns in the generator, and then another one is skills to learn, and it just played right off of each other. Physical changes, maybe you're not that healthy right now and you want to go hike while you're there, so you can throw that in there too. And different things that you want to do while you're over there. It's one thing does play off another, but the key is to get started and writing them down.
Exactly. And then once you have those goals written down, you need to take a good look at those goals. And every goal, to actually achieve it, you need to examine essentially the same way a reporter used to write a story. Looking at who, what, where, why, when. Because there's more to it than just saying, yes, this is what I'm going to do. So, for example, who? You need to consider who needs to be involved with you to achieve the goal. You may not have all of the skills you need. You may need to bring other people in. In the case of my friend whose goal was to get to Paris, her husband, she wanted to bring him, so he has to, be part of this goal. So there can always be more than just you. So you always have to figure who. Then you need to understand the what. It's think about exactly what you are trying to accomplish. And don't be afraid to get very detailed. Make it as specific as possible. And in terms of specific, we'll talk about that in a little bit when we get to what SMART goals are. You also need to figure out when. And again, that's part of it being a SMART goal, but you need to have that deadline. Otherwise, it just becomes a dream. Where? Now, that question may not always apply, especially if you're meeting personal goals. But if there's a location or a relevant event involved, you need to identify that as the where. Where could be going to Paris, or where could be your sister's wedding if the goal is you want to lose 20 pounds by the time your sister gets married. There's which. Determine any related obstacles or requirements. This question can be beneficial in deciding if your goal is realistic. For example, if the goal is to open a baking business, but you've never baked anything before, that's an issue. That's something you'll have to deal with. So as a result, you may want to refine the specifics of the goal to be learn how to bake in order to open a bakery. So that goes back to what I was saying earlier about goals creating other goals and breaking things down to really get where you're going. And then finally is why. What's the reason for the goal? We've talked a lot over the course of the podcast about starting with why. The why is your reason. And that helps you determine what the goal really is. Because Is the goal to travel? Is the goal to start a business? Well, why are you doing this? Is that goal the right way to get to that why? So you have to examine all of these things when you're creating these goals.
Yeah, and you talk about the why. The stronger the why, the more likely you are to achieve what you're looking to do. And that's not, well, goals are ways to achieve everything because they're the stepping stones to doing that. But when you're starting out, what you need to do is list what your main goal is for what you're doing. So, I mean, if you're looking at professional goals, you could start looking at yourself. If you're an independent business, you're going to be looking at doing a little bit of strategic planning, like what do you want your company to sell as far as total amount for the next year? What's the product mix or service mix going to be? Who are your potential targets? What's your business development strategies? What are your operation strategies to do what you got to do? And these are all headings for a series of goals to achieve all those things. On the personal strategic planning side, you can just ask yourself, what's going to make me happy and successful for the next year? And it could be the places that you want to visit. It could be family goals. It could be a lot of other different things. But if you come with a major one and you start drilling down into little subcategories to accomplish that, it's the best thing to do. One of my favorite books, too, as far as talking about chunking things down, is called The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. The book's been around for a long time, but it starts with the theory that if I gave you a penny today and doubled it for 30 days, or if I gave you $1,000,000 today, what would you rather have? And most people are going to jump at the $1,000,000. If you start doubling the penny, it's 2 cents tomorrow, 4 cents the next day, 8 cents. But going from day 30 to 31, it doubles from $5 to $10 million just by doing the same simple thing every day. And that's what this book is all about. The slight edge philosophy is to take a category, say it's physical changes. So say you want to lose 50 pounds over the year. Well, you're not going to do that at the end of the year. But what you can do is, what's your price to pay? It could be coming home from work and instead of watching television, going out for a walk, and instead of eating potato chips, having a healthy snack. When do you plan to start? And if you start tracking and doing one simple thing every single day, you're not going to lose that weight today, but in a month you might have lost 5-10 pounds and you're going to feel a whole lot better towards doing things. So regardless of what you're doing, realize that it's going to take a little bit of time, but if you can put yourself into a daily action plan, listing the things, the price you're going to have to pay, you might have to give something up, how you're going to start doing it, and what's one simple thing you can do every day towards achieving that goal. That's a great start and a great way to do things.
Absolutely. And you bring up a good point about there being a cost. And I mean, in terms of business, this is called an opportunity cost. And everything has an opportunity cost because there's something you have to do to take advantage of the opportunity, whether it's a cost of money, a cost of time, a cost of resources, whatever it is. And when you're putting these goals together, it is important to realize that, yes, you're adding something to your already busy day, which means something is probably going to have to fall by the wayside. It could be, watching TV, or it could be giving up an extra hour of sleep, whatever it is. So you need to take that into consideration because one of the things that's going to determine if you actually achieve the goal is, do you want to achieve that goal more than you want what you're giving up?
Yeah, you did bring up a good point earlier as far as the relationships that you have and accountability and that kind of thing. The bottom line is, if you look at Napoleon Hill as far as the mastermind principle or any of the other successful people out there, they don't go it alone. They have strategic partnerships out there. They share ideas and so on because no one person has all the answers. So part of your strategy in doing your goals, obviously, is if you have an accountability partner, or just shoot that out there to a few people saying, hey, next time you see me, ask me how I'm doing with this. That's accountability right there. And just work along